In 1915, International Business Machines went public on the New York Stock Exchange for $47 per share. It was one of the smallest companies on the stock exchange and would have been an unlikely purchase for any investor. That being said, an investment of just a single share in this company would prove to be one of the greatest examples of consistent stock appreciation in market history. Assuming IBM's current price of $170 per share, one share of IBM purchased at IPO would be worth an astonishing $2,112,462. That number represents a gain of this much, 4,500,000%. Even for a time span of over 100 years, this number is nearly incomprehensible. So how is this even possible? The answer to this question comes down to two things: stock splits and stock dividends. During its high growth years from 1925 to 1999, IBM announced 15 stock splits and 26 stock dividends, which is way more than average for any company. Amazingly, during the years of 1934 to 1961, riding on the growth of commercial computer sales, IBM only had 2 years where it didn't award investors with additional shares. During this relatively brief 27-year period, your starting number of shares would have been multiplied 30 times over. IBM posted its most recent stock split in 2021, where investors received 1,046 shares for every 1,000 shares that they initially owned. Even though this number seems rather insignificant, in the perspective of long-term compound growth, any form of positive growth can make a huge difference. In fact, while still basing our equation on that one share purchased back in 1915, the stock split in 2021 would have awarded 546 additional shares valued at nearly $100,000. In total, one share of IBM stock in 1915 would have split enough times to be worth 12,426 shares in 2024. When you also take into account the stock's appreciation over such a long period of time, it becomes easier to understand how a $47 investment 109 years ago could be worth over $2 million today. What if I told you that this figure of $2 million was actually on the low end of what could be possible with this investment? Why do I say what could be possible? Well, all of the figures up to this point have been excluding one very important factor: cash dividends. More importantly, the reinvestment of cash dividends back into IBM stock. Since 1916, IBM has paid out dividends during every single quarter of every single year. To be precise, this equates to 434 independent dividend payments, which I miserably had to input manually into my spreadsheet. Nonetheless, not only has IBM's stock split more times than pretty much any other blue chip stock in modern history, but it has one of the most long-lasting records of dividend payments in the entire market. With such a consistent history of dividend payments, it's no surprise that reinvesting the dividends throughout all 109 years of the stock's existence leads to an unbelievable increase in present value. So, what happens when 100% of cash dividends are reinvested back into purchasing more IBM stock? Well, the answer is complicated. Even though IBM's stock split, stock dividend, and cash dividend history are documented perfectly on their website, the actual price of IBM stock throughout history is not known. The websites that I found only contain stock quotes going back to the 1960s or 1970s, and even then, the quotes were adjusted for stock splits, which is not what I needed for my calculations. For years that I could not find direct, unadjusted stock quotes, I used an average of the compound annual growth rate and applied it to all stock prices for 1925 onwards. This provides a generally accurate approach to finding the final value of this investment in 2024, but it won't be perfect. So, disregarding the unknown, let's get down to the fun stuff. The numbers. If you reinvested dividends back into IBM during all 109 years since you bought one share at IPO, your ending value would be nothing short of insanity. Assuming you never sold any shares, in 2024, you would own 213,292 shares of IBM.
What? Can you believe it?
Did you hear that correctly? Let me put it on the screen. Do you want to see another big number?
Yes, yes!
Well, taking into account stock price appreciation, your ending market value would be $36,259,629. That's equivalent to a 77,148,000% gain on your investment, which is literally jaw-dropping.
Are you serious?
The reason that this number is so large is rooted in the almost impossible idea that an investor would never sell a share during all 109 years. and the investor would reinvest every last cent back into more shares of IBM.
You cannot put me, you, or this firm in jeopardy by putting $100 million in one idea.
I can guarantee that unless your great-grandfather lost an IBM stock certificate in 1915, which would really suck, the combination of these two factors has never ever happened before. Let's keep the hypothetical going though, because why not? IBM stock currently pays a dividend of $1.67 per share. This means that if you continue to hold on to your nearly 215,000 shares of IBM stock, you'd passively be making $356,000 per year entirely off of dividends.
Nice.
Can you imagine that? Making $350,000 per year for doing absolutely nothing. The only thing you ever had to do was inherit the wealth of a relative that happened to buy a single share of IBM stock in 1915 and hold on to it forever. Let's take this hypothetical and make it even more insane. What if an investor had the idea to buy 43 shares of IBM stock when it first went public in 1915? They'd have to spend $2,021 on this investment, which was nearly equal to the price of a luxury car at this time. But let's just play along. Using some quick extrapolation, this same investor would have over 9 million shares of IBM in 2024. Now, I won't bore you with re-illustrating how crazy of a number this is, but something incredible happens with this number of shares. You become a substantial shareholder in the business. Having bought 43 shares of IBM in 1915 and reinvesting all dividends back into the company, you'd own 1% of the entire business in 2024, a business which has a market cap of $155 billion. So congrats, you're a billionaire if you made this investment.